Well, the Suez Canal is still blocked, and according to Bloomberg data, there were 238 vessels queued up yesterday. Ships are beginning costly and time-consuming detours around Africa as concerns mount that a complex rescue mission could extend into weeks. Now, tugs and diggers haven't managed to dislodge the massive Ever Given container ship. The blue line shows the more direct shipping route through the canal between Europe and the Middle East and Asia. So, as indicated in red in the dotted line, the alternative is for ships to sail around the southern tip of the African continent. But this longer journey will take 1 to 2 more weeks. Well, you may have seen the jokes and the memes about this blockage, but there are real-world ramifications that may be more serious than we think. About 12% of global trade goes through the Suez Canal. The choke isn't just curbing shipments of crude oil and liquefied natural gas, but also containers of Robusta coffee, the type used to make Nescafe. Well, how will the Suez Canal jam affect the average consumer like you and me? Joining me now is Dr. Yap Wei Yim. He's the head of the International Trade Management Minor Program at the Singapore University of Social Sciences. Welcome, Dr. Yap. So, Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung, he said yesterday that supplies to the region may be temporarily disrupted. I understand goods transported via sea are usually of lower value products. So what specific items will be affected that will matter to the Singapore consumer?
First of all, thank you for having me. I think the impact actually will be felt more immediately in Europe because Europe sources a lot of its imports from Asian countries such as China, and many of these goods pass through the Suez Canal. Minister is right in that Asia will also be affected because if you look at the container trade alone, the blockage will actually worsen container shortages, which the industry is already experiencing and trying to recover from. So, however, I understand Singapore sources many of our necessities and products from Asia and Australasia by looking at the trade statistics. So for the consumers, the impact is probably going to be less significant. However, for importers and exporters, the impact can be disruptive if they are sourcing from or exporting to Europe.
So nothing to worry about, let's say our coffee supply, because I've read that, the containers of Robusta coffee will be affected as well.
Depending on where you're sourcing the Robusta coffee from, if it's Vietnam, I don't think it will be affected. And Vietnam is one of the key sources of export of Robusta coffee. Yeah, but therein said, this episode is going to cost supply chain billions of dollars because of all the disruptions. And on the impact on consumers, it will also have to depend on the market dynamics and of course dynamics in the supply chain. Why do I say this? If you take, for example, wine and cheese, supposing you're importing them from Europe and selling in Singapore, as a seller in Singapore, to what extent are you going to pass on the increase in costs, if any, to consumers? And as a consumer, are you willing to pay more for these products, versus alternatives if there's an increase in prices? And of course, if you're addicted to them, then that's a different story.
Well, Dr. Yap, Mr. Ong, as you mentioned, he also said an alternative is for ships to sail around the African continent to come to Asia. What are the other alternative sea routes? And actually, is it also an option for some of the freight to be transported by air?
The African route that Minister mentioned is known as the Cape route. It goes via South Africa. And I'm afraid if you are talking about sea route, there is no viable alternative other than the Suez Canal and the Cape route. But therein said, there is for countries that are located in North Asia like China, Korea, there's the rail connection with Europe they can rely on. But this is unlikely to replace the importance of the Suez route because the Suez route is still the main workhorse for the Asia-Europe trade.
Well, the Suez Canal blockage is now likely to aggravate existing bottlenecks and cause even more disruptions. So, Doctor, would that have a ripple effect on Singapore's ports?
Definitely, because the way container shipping is organized today is by using mainline vessels such as the Ever Given to call only at selected hubs in Asia and Europe. So these hubs will serve as consolidation and dissemination points for cargo for other ports in their respective regions. So Singapore is the key transshipment hub for Southeast Asia. And Singapore is also a major port of call for many mainline services that are passing through Southeast Asia. For a number of these services, Singapore is actually the only port of call in the region. So the situation of pileup seen in container hubs around the world is likely to worsen before getting better. And this will definitely have a ripple effect on other ports that are connected through these hubs.
To end off our discussion, Dr. Yap, has an incident of this magnitude happened before?
Okay, based on my recollection, I think the most significant effect which saw the canal closed for a prolonged period was, I think, during the Six-Day War until after the Yom Kippur War. That's from 1967 to 1975 for 8 years. And basically, all the ships got to go via the Cape Route. And but recently, I recall there was a container ship that was grounded. I think it was by OOCL, which lasted a couple of hours, so the impact was not that significant. And in 2004, there was an oil tanker that got stuck also for I think a couple of days. So again, the world recovered. So I'm optimistic that this situation will be resolved, and we're going to see things going back to normal.